The crackling echo of the fireplace enveloped the living room, spreading a soothing warmth as I reclined in the armchair, my gaze fixed on the flickering flames. On any other night, the fire might have brought comfort, but tonight it served a far grimmer purpose. I leaned back, sipping whiskey from a glass that had been gathering dust on the shelf for what felt like an eternity. The drink burned as it slid down my throat, but the sensation was nothing compared to the scalding betrayal coursing through my veins. Sophie had always been the love of my life, or so I believed. We had been married for years, and during that time, I had crafted my world around her. She was captivating, driven, and always the center of attention wherever she went. I took pride in calling her my wife, but that pride turned to ash 3 days ago when I stumbled upon a series of messages on her laptop, left open in her rush to pack for a business trip. The texts were anything but professional. Unless her job involved clandestine meetings with someone named Mark, their content had no place in her life. My heart sank as I read the explicit details of their plans. The hotel reservation and worse, her offhand dismissal of me as nothing more than a boring safety net. It felt like my entire world had been torn apart. I wanted to confront her then and there, but something held me back. Perhaps it was shock, or maybe the realization that a rash confrontation would only lead to more lies. Instead, I chose to wait, to let the storm brewing inside me rage until I could channel it into something more calculated. Sophie returned tonight, suitcase in hand, a radiant smile on her face as if nothing had happened. "Hey, babe, I missed you," she called out, kicking off her heels at the door. Her tone was sweet, almost convincing enough to make me question everything I knew. Almost. "Hey," I replied, watching her from the armchair and taking another sip of whiskey. "Did you have a good trip?" I asked, my voice carefully measured. She hesitated for the briefest moment before recovering. "Yeah, it was productive. Exhausting, though." She headed to the kitchen, likely expecting me to follow her and help with her bags like I always did. But not tonight. When she realized I hadn't moved, she glanced back. "You okay?" "Perfectly fine," I replied, letting my words linger in the air. My calmness seemed to unsettle her, but she shrugged it off and busied herself with unpacking. I waited, listening as she chatted about her hectic meetings and demanding schedule. Her lies flowed effortlessly, each one like a dagger twisting deeper into my gut. Finally, she asked, "What's burning in the fireplace?" "It smells different." I leaned forward in the armchair, resting my elbows on my knees. "Why don't you take a look?" Her brow furrowed as she walked to the hearth. The moment her eyes landed on it, her face went pale. "What the hell is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The flames consumed the remnants of our wedding album, the photos curling and blackening as the fire devoured them. The box of keepsakes, love letters, anniversary cards, and even the dried flowers from our wedding day lay next in line, waiting to feed the hungry blaze. "It seems fitting," I said, my tone cold and steady. "These things don't mean much anymore, do they?" She turned to me, her eyes wide with a mix of panic and anger. "What are you doing? Have you lost your mind?" "Have I?" I stood, setting my glass down on the coffee table with deliberate precision. "No, Sophie. For the first time in days, I'm thinking very clearly." She stepped back, the firelight casting eerie shadows across her face. I don't understand." I pulled my phone from my pocket, opening the photos I had taken of her laptop screen, and held it up for her to see. The color drained from her face as recognition set in. "Care to explain who Mark is?" Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. It's not what it looks like," she stammered. "Really?" I said, raising an eyebrow, "because it looks like you've been sleeping with him behind my back for God knows how long." "It was a mistake," she blurted out, her voice cracking. "I was lonely, and you've been so distant lately." I let out a bitter laugh, a sound so unfamiliar it felt alien even to me. "Distant? I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. I've been breaking my back, working tirelessly to build a life for us, to give you everything you ever wanted. But apparently, that still wasn't enough for you, was it? Her eyes welled with tears, but I felt no compassion. None at all. Not anymore. Please, she begged, her voice trembling. We can work through this. It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything? I echoed, my tone rising as anger flared within me. You orchestrated an entire trip around him. You called me boring. You lied to my face every single day. Don't insult my intelligence by claiming it meant nothing. She broke down, burying her face in her hands as sobs racked her frame. But her tears were meaningless to me now. I thought about confronting you the moment I found out, I said, my pacing mirroring the tempest raging inside me. But then I realized you don't deserve that. You deserve to know how it feels to have your world ripped apart. Her head shot up, panic flashing in her tear-streaked eyes. What are you talking about? I walked to the mantel and picked up a thick envelope. I spoke to a lawyer, I said with measured calmness. The divorce papers are ready. Inside, you'll find all the evidence attached. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. Oh, and I also reached out to Mark's wife. She was very interested in learning about her husband's extracurricular activities. Her face contorted in horror. You didn't? Oh, I did. I cut her off. She's probably confronting him as we speak. I tossed the envelope onto the coffee table with deliberate indifference. Take a good look. You'll find it's more than fair. I'm not looking for revenge. I just want you out of my life. She crumpled to the floor, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. Please don't do this, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I love you. You don't love me, I replied, my voice resolute. You love the comfort I gave you, the stability I provided. But you destroyed the one thing I truly needed from you, loyalty. Her pleas continued, but I had heard enough. Grabbing my coat and keys, I headed for the door. You have until the end of the week to move out, I said without looking back. If you're still here after that, the locks will be changed. Where are you going? She cried, desperation clinging to her voice. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. Anywhere but here. With that, I stepped out into the crisp night air. Each step I took away from her felt like shedding a layer of betrayal, the burden growing lighter with every passing moment. In the weeks that followed, I filed for divorce and began the arduous journey of rebuilding my life. The sympathy and support from friends and family were overwhelming, but I didn't dwell on their pity. Instead, I poured my energy into rediscovering the passions and hobbies I had sacrificed during my marriage. As for her, she moved out quietly, her pleas for forgiveness fading when she realized I wasn't coming back. Mark's wife left him, and from what I heard, he was struggling to piece his life back together. Good riddance. The fireplace has remained in use since that night. It stands as a silent reminder, not of the pain, but of the strength it took to walk away. Betrayal may have reduced my past to ashes, but from those very ashes, I've begun to rise anew.